Bloomberg Audio Studios.
Podcasts, radio, news.
This is the Bloomberg Surveillance Podcast. I'm Tom Keene, along with Paul Sweeney. Join us each day for insight from the best in economics, finance, investment, and international relations. You can also watch the show live on YouTube. Visit the Bloomberg Podcast channel on YouTube to see the show weekday mornings from 7 to 10 a.m. Eastern from our global headquarters in New York City. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else you listen, and always on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Terminal, and the Bloomberg Business app. Paul, I'm stressed out by the. Why don't you bring in our guest here? I mean, Gargi came in today just to, hang, and she's with BlackRock, and it's an important conversation.
Gargi Chaudhuri, Chief Investment and Portfolio Strategist of the Americas for BlackRock, but more important than that, she was at Merrill Lynch. She was at Jefferies, a company. But she's one of these people, Tom, that runs marathons, ultra marathons. Yeah, I mean, who does that stuff? Where are they running to? Who are they running from? I don't get it all.
I see her in Central Park.
Exactly. Gargi, thanks so much for joining us here in our studio. As John Tucker was just reporting here, all-time highs again yesterday for these markets. How do you think about just the opportunities in markets as you think about strategy, stepping back and looking about stocks, bonds, alternatives, treasuries? I've got the Federal Reserve. I've got earnings starting this week. Where do you guys start at a 30,000-foot level?
Sure. Good morning. It's great to be here. Lovely studios. So I will answer that question with the comment that you made about marathon running. It's all about the long run, and staying in the markets with a diversified portfolio is the way in which we're thinking about investing right now. We just came out with our midyear outlook yesterday, our midyear investment directions. And one of the things that we talk about there is that despite the very strong rally that we've seen so far year to date in the equity markets, especially in the US, we certainly think there continues to be pockets of opportunity, and we think investors should be focused on that quality parts of the equity markets and the core of your portfolio. What does quality mean? Profitability, low leverage, and really stable earnings growth. And obviously we see that in some of those tech and tech adjacent centers. Looking over to fixed income is king, and you can really get very robust, 6 to 7% income in a variety of sources. So that's really the 30,000-foot view. And I'd also say that investors are really looking for diversification right now.
It reads like a Davos manifest here. What in God's name is a fundamental transformation? You got to be kidding me. Did you come up with that? Is that a marketing thing? One of your interns?
Well, what we mean by fundamental transformation is that there are a few things, as we were just talking about when we looked at what are the stocks that are trading the most in the morning. And there are some companies that are driving changes that we think will be here, driving inflation, driving growth, driving returns, driving profit margins, driving productivity for a long time. And one of them is related to AI. And we spend a lot of time talking about the long-term opportunities, both with AI in terms of semiconductors, but also in the power needs of AI.
So how do you respond? I don't mean to interrupt, but this is what everybody on Global Wall Street wants to know. I'm going to suggest BlackRock is a more conservative, passive, a little bit of active, buy-side shop. Goldman Sachs is a sell-side shop, and they're going to generate an opinion. Mm-hmm. Somebody at Goldman Sachs in the last 48 hours, his basic, may I editorialize, Paul?
Sure.
AI is BS. Oh. How do you respond to that? They say there's no provable, identifiable downstream success with AI. How does BlackRock respond to that?
So one of the things that I would say is right now, when we look at the things that AI can do, whether that's just making your PowerPoint deck or whether that's in healthcare and looking at your mammogram results, this is just the beginning. We didn't know about ChatGPT, and there was no LLM, it was there, but it wasn't being as used 3 or 4 years ago. This is the beginning. In 1990, no one was using the internet. Today, 90% of the world's on the internet. This is just the beginning of what AI will do, not just in semiconductors, but across the stack, whether that be in financials, whether that be in healthcare, whether that be obviously in technology. So obviously people can have their opinions, and I think it's great to have two-sided markets. I think that's what makes a buyer and a seller. We like that. We encourage that. And but at the same time, we definitely think that there are some major, as we call them, structural transformations, of which AI is one. Demographics is another one, and we talk a little bit about the opportunities in India as a result of that. Geopolitics is another one that we spend a little bit of time talking about as well. And obviously, one of the things that I started off by talking about was the need for income as a result of some of these demographic shifts.
INDA, the iShares MSCI India ETF.
Yes.
Give us the India call. I think I understand it from the super macro level. It's
right.
The last 20, 25 years of China, maybe the next 20, 25 years will be India. That's as far as I go. How do you guys approach it?
It's not just about being the next China, and I actually would want investors to move away from that thinking.
Okay.
I think it's really about a country that is doing three things right now, which makes it appealing to investors. Number one, of course, the young demographic population. You have a country of people where majority are between that age of 25 and 45, which, especially when you look at the developed markets, is not the case. Second, it's the growth of infrastructure. It's what the government is putting in for infrastructure right now to make the country more productive and enhance productivity. Third is that Indian equities for either US investors or actually more importantly, Indian investors are really underowned. So there is the shift that's going to happen over the next few years and decades even, where more and more investors are going to go into their own domestic market. So I think all of that leads to both a short and a long-term story that we really like. And investors have been pouring into INDA this year.
Come back. This has been good.
Okay.
Please come back. We'd love to have you in as we can. Gargi Chaudhuri with us with BlackRock today. Thank you so much. Greatly appreciate it. There's something going on here, folks, whether it's France or it's London, United Kingdom, and frankly, India, as Gargi Chaudhuri was mentioned. There's something going on this summer about democracy and vote, which is a good setup for Henrietta Treyz. She is the best at the pulse in Washington. Henrietta, the Treyz radar at Veda Partners. What is your radar searching for this Wednesday morning?
I continue to be focused on all of the members and understanding where the next shoe is that's got to drop. Obviously, last night we got Senator Bennett, Democrat from Colorado, coming out saying that President Biden has got to make the decision to step down. I understand that the president has made this a sort of elites versus the rabble situation where he's saying the voters want Biden and it's the elites who've turned against him. And what's ironic is I literally wrote a note the exact same hour as he wrote his with the exact opposite takeaway. The rank and file Democrats across the country, independents, moderates, and particularly female voters, have said repeatedly all year long they do not want another term for Joe Biden. They do not believe that he is up to the task. And it's been the elites who have said, you know what, we're going to stick with this guy. The senators are behind him, the House members are behind him, and now both tides are shifting. And I'm really just watching which senators, from an office or a chamber where Biden operated for 36 years is going to make the decision to say, hey, you know what? Thank you so much for your service. It's time to move on. That's really the only thing that matters right now. I think we're about a week and a half away, but that's the most important thing in D.C. right now.
Henrietta, is it in fact President Biden's decision and his alone?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, a big focus in D.C. right now is on the process. So specifically, where does the campaign fundraising go? Where do the dollars in the Biden for President PAC go? How do you migrate over the support of all the delegates that are now, technically pretty locked in for Biden? Who releases them? And that's up to President Biden. That's his decision alone to make. He's got, a really small core of advisors who are working with him on that. But the main question is just operational. Do we move forward with Kamala Harris? Do we move to an open democratic process with a sort of quasi-primary? Or does Biden stay in the race? And for the Biden team, their answer is we stay in the race. We continue to fight this fight. And we're in the best position to win. What's ironic is that the defectors in D.C. who have come out thus far, 7 House members and just a handful of senators, are basically saying, you are not the guy. We want your campaign dollars to be spread around. We have others waiting in the wings. I mean, an underreported narrative of this whole story is that Democrats have been raising boatloads of money since the debate, record hauls. They raised record hauls when Trump was indicted on 34 felony counts. So there is plenty of money to go around. It just is around sort of unlocking it and moving it on to the next candidate.
timing. You mentioned a week and a half. Give us a sense of when we really have to have a decision and a path for the Democratic Party.
Really is like August 9th. That's when we really need a new nominee. The expectation and sort of the agita on the investment side, watching the DC side, is always fraught. I mean, anybody who's been through a debt ceiling countdown or a government shutdown countdown knows you just sort of like have a steely spine when it comes to DC. This is NATO week, right? So everything requires that the president have a really strong presentation. The United States has a strong presentation, the 75th anniversary, all that. But August 9th is really the deadline, the end time.
And there's so much out front here that's domestic, like the Republican convention in Milwaukee and that. Terry Haynes and others, Henrietta Treyz, and we value your opinions so much, have said polls. Are there any definitive polls yet? Or what poll to come is the one that matters for Henrietta Treyz?
I mean, honestly, the fact that I'm looking at polls from New York should be shocking to the Biden team. It used to be the situation where Joe Biden could run his state and Donald Trump was losing the one that he came from. Now it's precisely the opposite. Now Donald Trump is, making New York potentially a purple state the first time in 25 years, and Joe Biden's down by 7 points in Pennsylvania for your latest poll. I mean, the flip is everywhere. New Hampshire, Minnesota, leading is all over. Okay,
but you're incredibly wired. I mean, she has spies in the White House. I mean, Paul, it's unbelievable. She's got microphones in every room, in the green room, the Lincoln bedroom, and all. Henrietta Treyz, when they say you're down 7 points in Pennsylvania, how does the Biden apparatus respond?
They're honestly, on this one, they're ignoring the poll. They're saying we remain competitive. If they do migrate off that narrative, it's to say we are the best positioned to win. They're running against hypothetical candidates with much lower name recognition, whether that's Gavin Newsom, Gretchen Whitmer, or even Kamala Harris, who's got a 6% of the population that doesn't know who she is versus 3% for Trump and Biden. So basically, they just keep moving the narrative as frequently as possible and sort of cherry picking their opportunities, which is not a winning argument.
What kind of convention will the Democrats have here?
It's going to be loud.
Yeah.
I'm out of consensus on this, but I do not think that Biden will be the nominee in November. I think that right now we have, 3.5, almost 4 months worth of the campaign to go. The benefit of right now is that we are in, all-time record high TSA travel on airplanes. Record travel from AAA on automobiles. People are on vacation. We are in deep summer. So there's a lot of time for the Democratic Party to pull around the narrative. Having served on grassroots campaigns nationwide, a lot of voters, especially since sort of the internet revolution, do not tune into the election until the last couple of weeks. Right. 24% of independents don't make a call on how they're going to vote until after Labor Day. So it seems like there's nothing left and time is of the essence, but there's really 75 of the most important days are still like 50 days away.
Paul, can we ask a nerd Henrietta Treyz question? Henrietta, come on. Connor Lamb out in Western Pennsylvania, there he was, poster child for the conservative Union Democrat and all that. Christopher DeLuzio is a first-term Democrat in the vicinity of Allegheny County, Pittsburgh. What's he think of all this?
Pittsburgh is, first of all, very near and dear to my heart, and as is Connor Lamb. I think that when Democrats look at Pennsylvania and they look at Pittsburgh, they've got to concentrate on the male voter. The male voter has abandoned Biden specifically. And it's not that they've abandoned the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party platform remains overwhelmingly popular. Legalizing abortion, legalizing marijuana, common sense gun control, things along those lines, versus the Republican platform, which is almost universally opposed to things like having teachers be armed in classrooms to stop gun violence in schools, pulling out of NATO. Those are things that are wildly unpopular with Americans across the board, including in Pittsburgh. And it's mostly the male voter that I would concentrate on there. That's where Democrats are hemorrhaging votes.
So if our interns just said to say a thank you greeting for Henrietta Treyz, we send her a case of Yingling beer. Lauren Hochfelder, when she was last on Stop Traffic, She's out of Yale. She's at Morgan Stanley. She's an institution on real estate. And it's the big, it's like Michael Mauboussin. It's the big picture real estate chat. But underneath it all is to try to figure out how much money we're going to lose. Lauren, where is the buy the dip winner right now in American real estate?
Gosh, well, first of all, thanks for having me back. It's great to be with you. I think the nice thing is that the dip seems to be affecting all real estate asset classes, all repriced almost across the board. But some of those are repriced for a reason, and some we think are actually really healthy, really great outlook.
Give me one of the healthy ones right now. I got to make some money this morning.
Well, let's start with industrial. There are really three reasons we love industrial. The first is let's look at the supply chain. We are rerouting and rerouting. Rerouting, changing where goods are manufactured, nearshoring, onshoring of goods, et cetera, and rerouting, changing how those goods get to the end consumer. And so all of that creates demand for industrial. The second is the continued rise in e-commerce, right? We all seem to be buying more and more of our goods online and demanding it faster and faster. That creates demand for industrial. And the third, really, which I think is underreported, is just this dramatic fall off in new construction. So when you feel like demand is really strong and supply is curtailed, that's a good sign for an asset.
One of the themes that's out there, Lauren, just investors in general, is an aging population. How do you play that in real estate?
Yeah, it is. This is really important because as people age, their needs for real estate change, right? And we know we have an aging population, and in particular, the growth in our population is coming from two cohorts. It's the millennials and it's the boomers. And let me tell you, when you look at housing needs, their needs are changing. The millennials, they're needing more space, and the boomers, they're needing more services, more healthcare services in particular. So I'd say in the case of the millennials, there's a move towards single family rental. That's a great beneficiary of millennial demand. In the case of the boomers, we are really optimistic about senior housing because the number of seniors is up and the wealth held by those seniors is up, and let industrial supply down.
Lauren, the big service that the boomers are looking for is, can you find me a dog walker? I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Lauren, there's a national housing crisis. Now, you tell me single family rentals are going to work. And as you well know, Blackstone has been a piñata where big evil institutions like Morgan Stanley and Blackstone are taking out single-family rentals. I mean, you're definitive on this. Respond to the idea that evil New York City institutions are buying up all the single-family home rentals, boosting the price of a rent.
Look, we think there's a better way to do it, and the way we execute is build to rent. So we are building new supply in purpose-built communities where residents get the benefits of multifamily, so they get highly amenitized community living, but the benefits of single family insofar as they're larger units. They get their four walls. And we're adding supply, so we're not competing with individuals looking to buy homes. I think we're helping the affordability crisis there.
So, Lauren, on office real estate, do we have a sense of where the market is in large urban markets in this country for office real estate? Have we had transactions that are actually setting the market price for us?
Yeah, so there's wide bifurcation here, right? And so there are certain type of office that I think will continue to really perform. The best of the best office, that which has the right characteristics to attract tenants, that which has the right, frankly, sustainability characteristics. We think that will continue to do well as we go ahead. And I'd say there's not been a lot of that trading, but we think that will continue to perform. And what I can tell you is that rents in some of those assets, even in markets like San Francisco, are above pre-COVID levels. Flip it to the other end of the spectrum, and there's office that simply shouldn't exist as office, and that's trading 70+% down because it needs to be converted to an alternative use.
Okay, and are we seeing some of these transactions in the B and C type office? Because I'm just thinking about New York City here, 3rd Avenue from 58th Street to 42nd Street. What's that market like?
Yeah, so you're starting to see some conversions of office to residential. I would warn that there are only certain types of buildings for which that works. Tends to be smaller floor plans or floor plates, tends to be buildings with more windows. There are a variety of different physical characteristics that make certain buildings better contenders than others. But we are in the very early innings of that. And part of that is similar to post 9/11, there is some private-public partnership.
Thanks so much. This has been great. Lauren, don't be a stranger. Love to have you into the office
They've
again.
always
as well.
been, Tom.
Lauren Hochfelder. Your daily look at the front page is John Tucker in for Lisa Mateo. John Tucker with the newspapers.
Yeah, this one comes from the Washington Post this morning. George Stephanopoulos caught on camera expressing doubts about Joe Biden. The ABC News anchor, who, of course, recently interviewed President Biden about his fitness for the race, was caught on camera yesterday indicating he doesn't think Biden can serve another 4 years. So he's seen in gym clothes outside the studios in a video published by TMZ. He's asked by a passerby, what do you think? Do you think Biden should step down? Well, you've talked to him more than anybody else lately, and you can be honest. I don't think Stephanopoulos doesn't look like he knew he was being recorded here. Just off camera, he's captured on fuzzy audio responding, he doesn't think he can serve 4 more years. A statement late yesterday, Stephanopoulos acknowledged he was the person seen in the video. The remarks come days after the interview with Biden, during which...
It's all TMZ thing.
Yeah, I mean,
gotcha.
I don't know if the person was working for TMZ or
Right.
just, but again...
I mean, but John, you live this every day. You're out on the deck at Atlantic Highlands, and you got to be worried that you're recorded.
Nobody
Over the lobster
on the
episode.
planet Earth cares what I think about it.
But that goes to the issue, John. I mean, A, can he win the election? B, can President Biden serve a 4-year term? So it's a valid question.
Well, the gentleman from ABC is not looking at the immediacy in the debate that's out there, whether it's Trump or Biden. He's saying either of these people have to get out 4 years.
Yeah.
I have to get out 4 years.
Right.
Well, good luck with that. This is from the Wall Street Journal. Ivy League alumni clubs hustling for members. I go home on 66th Street crosstown. I don't know how many of those Ivy League clubs I pass.
Yeah.
I could never get into one.
I'll give you one.
Well, I went to
moment.
Harvard on the Hackensack. Maybe that counts. The Princeton Club in New York, losing members, bleeding cash before closing its doors in 2021. Some remaining members explored a last-ditch overhaul. That stalled, so it's closed. So now the Ivy League schools with clubs in New York tend to keep most membership and other information private, but some of the recent events suggest more distrust. The Yale Club, for instance, changing its admission policy. You don't have to.
You don't have to go to Yale to go to Yale Club. I'll give you one vignette on this quick. I don't want to take a lot of time on this, but I believe it was Princeton University Press called me up and they said Kahneman's going to be here doing his book. And there I am at the Princeton University Club with Paul Volcker and Daniel Kahneman as he talks about his iconic book. We just lost him, of course. And it's great. My basic take, John, on this is the Harvard Club, they've put a lot of money into, and they've kept it spruced up over the years. The others, I don't think they've done a thing since 1962. Like, they just ran out of time, and they didn't keep the investment going to make them fancy.
You don't appeal to a younger generation when you have like these, big stuffy chairs and like cigar smoking.
I don't know.
It's my.
They're all up. Like they're at Daniel Boulud's new, Cafe Boulud. That's where the young kids are.
Anyway, this next one's from the Wall Street Journal. The latest cringe-worthy corporate buzzword. The CEO of a healthcare company recently discussed his company's latest results. During the Q&A, one of the analysts said, I wanted to double-click a bit on some of the commentary you had. This is one of the fastest spreading corporate buzzwords in recent years. Double-click. I think it's a little obnoxious, but double-click defenders say the phrase encourages deeper thinking.
I read the article. I'm as guilty of this as anybody. And I don't, double-click, does it,
I don't know.
I don't.
There's something about these tech-inflicted buzzwords, especially apt to gain traction. You have like network, bandwidth, take offline. The best part of the article is the Wall Street Journal reporter actually tracked down the guy who invented DoubleClick, the real, literal DoubleClick. The former Apple designer Bill Atkinson, retired now. He was reached on his boat by the Journal. He says, no, he'd steer clear of such usage.
Yeah, he's not going to.
Lisa will be double clicking.
Yes.
I could just see Lisa, she'll be.
Want one more?
One more, please.
All right. From Bloomberg Law, Bolero, accused of widespread age bias. A federal lawsuit in New York charges Bolero and two subsidiaries engaged in nationwide discrimination against workers aged 40 and older in a push to make over traditional bowling centers they acquired into young, hip entertainment centers. So at least according to the suit, the hiring practices that the companies implemented part of the ship designed to preclude potential candidates aged 40 or older from securing jobs at their bowling alleys. This is bowling people.
Oh, it's a bowling alley. All right.
Yeah, Bolero is bowling. It used to be, it was from Greenwich Village. It used to be Bowlmore, and they transformed themselves into a national brand and adopted the name Bolero.
So people still bowl.
People still bowl, but they want to appeal to a much younger audience. And that's aside from this lawsuit.
Well, I don't know if you guys ever been down there, but down below Home Depot, we've got the surveillance bowling lanes.
Oh, yeah?
They're like New England. They're candle pin. They're not like real pins.
That would be
they're like,
aisle 4 of the Home Depot.
They're candle pin. I call them candlestick.
Very good. So
it's like, Saturday afternoon at WBZ.
I'm sure Lisa would have done a better job.
I think so, too. Let's double click on that right now. John Tucker, I guess, thank you. So when's Lisa back?
Yeah, exactly.
Next week, next Monday.
Yeah, she's out there for a few days out there. We got Carol Master and Tim Stenovic.
She's out there doing quote-unquote company work.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like a real job.
Yep.
John Tucker, thank you so much for the newspapers. Greatly appreciate it.
This is the Bloomberg Surveillance Podcast, bringing you the best in economics, finance, investment, and international relations. You can also watch the show live on YouTube. Visit the Bloomberg Podcast channel on YouTube to see the show weekday mornings from 7 to 10 a.m. Eastern from our global headquarters in New York City. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else you listen, and always on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Terminal, and the Bloomberg Business app.